Aloha everyone and welcome to another Tinkers Academy video. I'm your host Kay Elmer, and in this video I would like to share with you a great discussion I just had with Dr. Nadene Johnson, who's a doctor of naturopathic medicine practicing in the state of Illinois here in the USA. She is she holds a doctorate in naturopathic medicine from the National University of Health Science. She's also board certified as a naturopathic physician in the state of Illinois and also holds a Master of Science in Acupuncture and a license to practice acupuncturist, or is a licensed acupuncturist, also in the state of Illinois. And we had the most fascinating discussion about what is naturopathic medicine? How does it work? What's it all about? How would you, go ahead and give it a try if you've never tried naturopathic medicine before, and what to expect and all of that. And that's covered all in part one here. Now, there's going to be a part two that goes off into another great series of topics that we chatted about. But I just wanted to kind of share with you a little bit about Nadene and just this wonderful human being who's made it her life's goal to help others, with their health and their wellness. And this discussion is part one is a great place to start if you're new to naturopathic medicine. And then to also hear some of these remarkable healing stories of some of the people that she's helped with on their healing journey. So, go ahead. Let's go ahead and start the interview right now. And thanks for joining. Aloha, everyone, and welcome to another Tinkers Academy video. I'm your host, Kay Elmer, and I have got the incredible privilege and just wonderful opportunity to interview Dr. Nadene Johnson, who's a doctor of naturopath, or I'm sorry, doctor of, I didn't mean to butcher that, but
That's
so you're a
okay.
naturopathic doctor, but how do you describe your doctor of, what's the phrase for that?
Yeah, naturopathic medicine.
Naturopathic medicine. And I just, thank you for joining me. Nadine's been a longtime member of our Telegram chat group and a great contributor in terms of just when people have questions about, stuff that I can't even answer. I haven't done the research, but, more so it's better to ask her and some of our other healers. And I just want to say thank you for joining me. And I'm taking this opportunity to learn about naturopathic medicine, and I'm a newbie at this. I'm learning each different segment. I'm good at some and kind of a complete noob at others. And just what's your journey and what is this all about? So I guess the first thing I'd like to do is just say, welcome, aloha, and thanks for joining me. And could you kind of explain, in just overall general, what is naturopathic medicine to someone
Yeah.
who's just doesn't have a clue what that is?
Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much, Kay, for this opportunity to talk to you. I really appreciate it. So naturopathic medicine is really just medicine without drugs or surgery. That's the basic thing. Um, if you think of the medical profession and doctors along a continuum, at the far one end, there's medical doctors. Then in the middle, there's kind of functional medical doctors. And then the far other end is naturopathic. And we are trained. I was trained in medical school, so I actually have the same training as an NP, or a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner. But we get training in nutrition, homeopathy, physical therapy, all kinds of supplements, diet, and we get trained in all kinds of physical medicine. So all the modalities that we use are all natural, even though we may use a lot of supplements that maybe aren't, you can't go out and find them, in the ground. But compared to using drugs and surgery, they are natural. So we can take, a person who comes in with any kind of thing, usually they're really complicated, and look at it and look at the body holistically. So we'll look at things with all the systems that are connected. Whereas in allopathy, it's always one system at a time. if you got a heart problem, you go to the cardiologist. If you've got a joint problem, you go to, the joint doctor. If you got an endocrine problem, it's the endocrinologist. But we look at things holistically. I look at, well, so how's this endocrine issue affecting the joints? Because it is. How is this affected by their diet? How's their gut affecting, their endocrine system? Because it is. Everything is connected. So we take like a really big vision and narrow it down to that one person, and work through, different methods that are very gentle to accomplish really, a total health. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, okay, so allopath, just for folks that aren't familiar with the term, is a standard American Medical Association certified physician that you would find in a hospital or a medical
Yes.
practice. Usually your GP, right? A general
Yes.
practitioner. And then, of course,
Yep.
that's the one, those are the people that are tied to the health insurance system. And that is what is considered modern medical health care. But I think you
Yes.
bring up a really good point, though, is, first of all, a human being is an entirely complex system of different things going on. And you're right, it's not one thing. It's like if you ever had to debug anything. I'm from a technology background. Whenever I had to debug technology, it was never what you thought it was. It was always because everything's connected and they're all talking to each other. So I'm sure certainly the body's the same way. But my point though is that the things you listed out, understanding nutrition and diet and all of these other aspects of a person's health, in addition, in terms of trying to, I guess, evaluate their health or their condition, right? I know for a fact that allopaths come out of medical school and with almost no education. Right? I think their nutrition, if they go to school for 8 years on average, right? And
Right.
how much of those 8 years is spent understanding nutrition?
Not even a
or
few
or
hours.
or yeah, or the bioelectrics of the concept of
Oh,
bioelectric.
none.
Right, none. Right, so they don't take classes in that. They take, I don't know.
No.
Yeah,
And
all my
they get no education in
yeah,
vaccines either.
yeah. So
None.
you look at the whole person then. So like I was kind of reading your website, and understand that. So you're an actual board certified in your state, right? So you're actually not only doctor from education, but I guess there's like 21 states in the country that certify naturopaths. And so in some
Yes.
states that they may not necessarily be quote licensed, but you've actually gone the full route, and you've got a practice, and you're practicing in
Yes.
Illinois. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So the tricky thing about the term naturopath is that there are two sections of naturopath. There's naturopathic physicians who are trained in a medical school and have gone through years of clinical work, like I have, and they are licensable in a state that licenses those type of physicians. And then there are traditional naturopaths who have not gone to medical school, but they still have good, they still might have good training. It just may be online classes, it may be in-person classes, but it's not medical training. So it's a little confusing
Mm-hmm.
because you can be a naturopath and not have gone through medical school.
Okay. So on your FAQ here, you've kind of got, there's a difference between a naturopathic doctor
Yes.
and a naturopath. Okay. So
Yep.
when people are seeking out, let's say, the majority of Americans are probably fed up with the healthcare system. I don't think anybody doesn't know that it's broken. Try to go get an appointment, try to get some help. You get 5 minutes with somebody, and they walk in, ask you three questions, give you drugs, and walk away. So it's common sense that it's that's,
Mhm.
and then this whole concept of, okay, take these, and if you're not better, come back next week. It's, that's like, there's a joke, right? That's quite quote, they call it a practice.
Right, because they're
Because that's
practicing.
all.
They're experimenting on you.
Yeah,
That's
it's
really
like,
what
yeah,
it
try
is.
this, and if it doesn't work, I mean, it's like, hey, can you imagine taking your car in, and they'll go, yeah, okay, try this, give me some money, and see if this works, and
Sure.
if the car doesn't work next week, bring it back. Oh, car doesn't work again next week, give me some more money, try this, and Yeah, would you put how many times would you go back to the car repair shop
Yeah,
before you start
no,
wondering maybe you need another mechanic?
right.
And so, okay,
Absolutely.
so I'm really curious. So, like, I was looking here at your credentials, like, so what does it take? I mean, yeah, because you mentioned you had that you're the same level of a PA, so that there's a lot of academics. So there's a bachelor's, a master's, and then you had to go to a separate school. Is that how that works?
Yes.
Because I see you got
Um,
a master's of science in acupuncture as
yep.
well. And so, is
Yep.
acupuncture required to be a naturopath, or is that an extra thing that you added on to your
So
credentials?
that's an extra thing that I added on.
Okay.
Some states, I don't know, I don't think anybody requires it, but it dovetails really well with naturopathic medicine. So a lot of us do have acupuncture degrees, and we use that under our naturopathic doctor licensure.
Okay.
Because I'm not licensed as an actual physician in Illinois, I rely a little bit more on my acupuncture license.
Okay. Okay. And so, and is that kind of, and so, there's also doctors of chiropractic medicine and homeopathy, but I'm thinking homeopathy is not necessarily like a licensed thing. Is that
Correct.
okay? And then chiropractic is, so that's another
Mhm.
branch of quote, healthcare, right? Is
Yes,
chiropractic
yes.
and homeopathists. Okay. I'm sorry, naturopath. All right. So, yeah, it seems like there's a lot of study in it. And how many years have you been in doing this line of work?
Geez. Well, since I graduated from school, it's been 5 years, but it was I was like 7 years in school. So yeah, medical school is no joke.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, as I mentioned on my videos and stuff, my daughter's currently attending vet school.
Oh,
And so I'm just so proud of her. I love to brag. But she's currently going to Mizzou as in a grad program there. And and it's funny that, I'm kind of like anti-allopath, but here's my daughter's an allopath for animals. But but she gets it. And our running thing is that once she graduates and gets her, whatever she's going to do, she wants to open up a practice. And I said, well, give me a room in that practice where I can then I'll be your alternative healing, pet healing for pets, right? Because they've got acupuncture for pets, they've got all sorts of stuff, and I'm like, hey, I'll bring in the cold lasers, I'll bring in the multi-wave oscillators, I'll come in with the CNRs, because I've actually treated my pets with those types of devices with great success. And she's like, yeah, I'll give you a room, Dad, and you can be the office manager.
love it.
you know so yeah, absolutely, so she gets it, and she's really, in a Hawaiian word, is there's a word called akamai, which means you get it, right?
Hmm.
And she's really akamai about that. But so
Oh,
a couple of other interesting questions that I have, because I've never spoke before, to a doctor of naturopathic medicine. But so, okay, so there's a lot of education, you're licensed in your state, and then but are you part of the insurance world? Because in the past, like I guess I don't know, many years ago, um, I just was fed up with having back problems my whole life, and I'd gone to chiropractics and I've gone to orthopedics and so forth. And at one point, I just wanted to try it. And this is how I was introduced to traditional Chinese medicine. And so I went to an acupuncturist in Honolulu, and then my insurance wouldn't cover it. I mean, so is that a common problem for folks? Or I mean, is that like when people have health
yes.
insurance, can they go to you, or is it going to be out of pocket? Because I know
So,
sometimes chiropractics you can cover. So how does
mhm.
that work? In terms of health insurance and your profession.
Yes, yes. So that's a yes and no thing.
Uh-huh.
So I have one toe in the insurance world, and it is a painful one. I can accept insurance for acupuncture with some plans, and they pay pretty well if they cover acupuncture. They don't cover naturopathic medicine because it's not licensable in the state. So I get a lot of people who ask me, does naturopathic medicine, is that covered by insurance? And I have to say no. And thank goodness, because if it was, they would try to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
They would try to control the care. Now, in other states where a naturopathic doctor is licensed, it often is covered by insurance.
Hmm.
And I don't think there's really an issue with care, but I'm a little bit obstinate and stubborn, and I want to
No,
do
really.
things. Yeah, really, really. And so I want to do what I want to do. And if I think somebody needs this particular care, then that's what I'm going to prescribe for them. So, and I don't want anybody to tell me, no, you can't do that, or no, I'm not going to pay for it. So yes,
Yeah.
so that's a
Okay.
really
So
dicey
it's
thing. And
hit or miss, right?
yeah, and
Depending on where you
people,
live.
yeah, and people don't they they don't like having to pay for their health care, or they're just not used to it. So it just depends on what state you're in, whether it may be covered by insurance or not. But it's not here in Illinois for naturopathic care, but it is for acupuncture. So
Oh yeah, that's yeah. I don't want to go off on a tangent about how healthcare insurance is such a
yeah,
huge scam
yeah,
thing. But okay, I was wondering because I know that it's problematic, right, for people because of the expense, and I had to pay out of
mhm.
pocket. And I love this one question here on your FAQ about does acupuncture hurt? I've done it a lot, and I could tell you, you don't even feel it. It's just the strangest thing for someone to put little needles in you, and you don't even feel it. You're watching them do it, and you don't feel what they're doing. It's just really
Yeah,
strange.
I
Uh,
know.
but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm sure you get that
But people
question.
want to know. They think you're putting a
Yeah.
big hypodermic needle into your body. No, it's teeny tiny.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's really, 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 really small. So,
Mhm.
okay, so now that we kind of got that intro behind us, I'd like to understand the methodology. I mean, you've kind of described it in general in terms of looking at the body as a whole living system and everything's interconnected. So you evaluate the whole thing. But my first question, because I'm really such a nerd about how things work. But like, can we just start out like how do you diagnose? Because my experience with an acupuncturist, which was they just would look at. I mean, there was this Chinese lady and very respected, in Honolulu. She was actually the dean of Chinese medicine at University of Hawaii. I don't know how I lucked out, but I ended up with her, and we got along great because I was always asking tons of questions. I was so interested in what was going on, and she actually invited me to sit in, and I did audit some classes because I was so interested in what was going on. But she would basically the whole tongue thing, like stick your tongue out, like
Mhm.
she would look at and she would talk about me in terms of like heat and cold and dry and wet. And I didn't really understand what she was talking about. But she did some amazing things to my body that helped me so many different ways. It was just unbelievable, which is what really sold me on, hey, there is another way to seek out health care. But I think the thing was I don't know, like, are you guys like gifted like with a touch? Because she could touch me and then start telling me
Mhm.
about myself. Like she, touch the wrists and the neck, and then
Right.
that was so. It's just like, how do you? Is that like what's that part about your diagnoses? Because I know if you go to a medical doctor, they're just going to quote run tests. And it's going to be like ching 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 ching, And I always look at it like it's their cash cow. This is how they're getting. It's like going to like again take your car to a mechanic and I got to do this test and this test and this test and it's going to cost you 40-30 bucks each but that doesn't happen, right, when you work with someone like yourself. So like how's that diagnosis
Right.
like? Could you kind of describe like what do you do? How do you find out what's wrong with someone?
So are you talking mostly about Chinese medicine diagnosis
Well,
versus?
how about this? Like if like myself, I've never actually consulted a naturopath. Uh, I've only done Chinese traditional medicine,
Mhm.
and in terms of something that's an alternative, and of course all the stuff that I do myself. I've never actually worked with anybody that does bioelectric. I know chiropractors build it into their practices like
Mhm.
PMF and things like that. So I've done all that myself, did all the research, and I'm a big, huge DIY guy. And
Yeah,
the only time I've reached out outside of allopaths is with Chinese. But and I
sure.
was really just amazed at how she diagnosed me. Um, so I'm just kind of wondering, like, in the world of somebody comes to you, because like I'm a total noob at this. So if I come to you and say, look, pick a problem, like uh, uh, constipation. Let's pick that up.
Sure.
And so where do you start? Or like, oh, kidney stones. I just had a kidney stone, and that's a good one
Yeah.
too, right? Or I can't sleep. Any of those kinds of issues. I guess they're all individually different, but like, what's the
Yeah.
general approach on trying to understand? Like, what do you start with, and then how do you do it?
So that's a great question. Um, so technically, because I'm not licensed, I can't actually diagnose somebody with, say an ICD, you know, 10 code or whatever it is. Not ICD-10, but I technically can't make a diagnosis, but I take what people bring in. Like they'll come in and they'll say, well, the doctor says I've got this. I'm like, oh, okay. First, I will do an extremely detailed health history. I'll look at labs, although labs are not the most important thing to me. They're just like numbers. I ask a ton of questions, and I'm really, really good at listening. And plus, I'm really good at critical thinking and using my intuition to make connections that people don't um, realize. I have had things come up. I mean, it's just amazing. I I really rely. I know this sounds kind of woo woo, but I rely on my intuition with the universe to lead me where this particular patient needs to go, and
Hmm.
it's never failed me yet, ever. And I will always do a physical exam because yes, touching a person, no matter what, because I've been a massage therapist for 16 or 17 years, I have intuition in my fingers. And I absolutely rely on that as well. It tells me things on a level that I don't even know. So I know that sounds kind of out of the box and woo woo, but it actually works really, really well in practice. And things just come out, and I will pick up on something, um, and let my intuition guide me with the questions. And typically, what I will look for is something where they have been never well since. It's like, it may be an accident, it might be a trauma, it might be a childhood thing, but if I can find that, then that will inform treatment. That will make a difference because we might focus on, oh, it might be something in the brain. It might be a PTSD thing. We might need to do primitive response reflex exercises. Maybe they were traumatized as a baby. Um, so it's just this wide open thing that, I get scared when people come in, really, because I'm like, can I do it? What if I can't do it this time? What if I can't figure it out? But every time something leads me down a rabbit hole with that particular person. And it's just kind of like magic. So I pull together all the medical knowledge that I've got.
All right, so sorry about that little interruption. You were right in the middle of explaining your diagnosis project process, and you were like, "It's magic," and I think that's when we got cut off.
Yeah.
I was going to
Yeah.
ask, yeah, I
Go
was going
ahead.
to ask you though. It's like because that's exactly what other people are, because I'm really starting this really focus on health and healing on the YouTube channel and blog. And as I speak to more and more healers, and I really want to keep doing this because you folks are such amazing beings. It's the same with so far I've only done 3 interviews of other healers, and it's all the same. All of you are saying almost the same thing, and I think that's where the quantum aspect comes in. This intuitive, like when your biofields combine, right? Your biofields connect with each other. We're all connected in the quantum field, but when you actually when your biofields are immersed with each other is when the communication really starts happening and your intuition kicks off, and intuition is definitely a gift. So it sounds like, that's kind of
Yeah.
part of the process, that you actually do have a gift.
Yeah, it definitely is a big part of it. And it did take me a while, number one, to realize that, and number two, to actually use it and then to actually rely on it. And I now tell my patients up front that I don't know everything. And so I ask the universe to bring in exactly what you need for a treatment. And it's never failed me. And they usually understand that because it's a form of prayer.
So
Um,
do people seek you out after they've kind of like, I guess, had a negative experience or a failed experience with their traditional doctors? Or do they, I mean, how many, like, what would be the percent of people who come to you straight off the bat, with an issue, as opposed to people who are just like, they can't get help. They just can't get what they need. And they're like seeking something, an alternative, anything, because they're so frustrated or desperate. I mean, what's that percentage?
yeah.
Like,
The majority are the ones who are desperate and have been through the medical mill and they can't find answers, or it's getting worse, or they're just at the end of their rope. There are a few, I'd probably say maybe a third, who are natural, who've always been natural, but who just need more guidance.
yeah.
But the vast majority have been through, or they've had an epiphany like you and said, I'm done with that system. I need more help, in a natural way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I think that's a lot of it too. And I moderate different channels on Telegram, and they're all related to health one way or another. And it seems that the majority of people coming into those different chat groups for, the different things are, they've kind of like seen the light, like, I'm not going to get any help from these people. I need, like, isn't there, is there an alternative? And they're doing their own research. And so, yeah, I think I definitely see that. So
Yeah,
from a diagnose, because I'm really curious about the diagnosis aspect. So thank you for explaining that. It does make a lot
mhm,
of sense to me, because, what I've also been doing, I think in one of my recent videos, I did a deep dive on meridian stress assessments, also known as bioenergetic diagnoses, right? And I found that to be quite fascinating, because there's actually devices that can do diagnoses that are based on the actual Chinese traditional medicine. The flow of
mhm.
meridians. So they've it's kind of interesting how Western doctors have adopted the concepts and practices of Chinese traditional medicine, and they've created devices to do what people like yourself can do naturally. So
Right, right.
yes, so
But actually, I've always been interested in that
yeah,
particular one, the EAV,
uh-huh.
electro something something according to Vol. I've just never settled on the machine.
Yeah. Well, the actual, going off on a tangent,
And
there's actually
yeah,
a Deca Vol.
yeah, that
I
one.
was, yeah, I was doing one on the device that the Bessa Institute uses, and they actually had their own created. They have their own proprietary machine
Mhm.
that they use. There's other ones out there. I think there's another one called BioScan. But yeah, these are kind of like quantum devices where they just tap into you, and then using I guess, just using electrical current, trying and measuring the changes of the current through your meridians can
Mhm.
determine um, positive, negative, or neutral health. And then, of course, depending on what meridian you're looking at, then tells them what where in the body the issues are. And
Yeah,
that's another approach. And I know that our good friend Mandy, can't go this
yeah,
interview without just mentioning her, the lovely
right.
human being, this beautiful soul on our planet. She and I are really into the Tennant biomodulator, the Jerry Tennant
Hmm.
stuff. And like her and I we're like swapping education materials, because I got my whole setup and then she got her whole setup. And so we're kind of like trading materials. And she went to the conference, I think. And yeah, she did. And then she shared her stuff with me. And it's just, so that's another way to do it as well. It's measuring the body voltage. And I think Dr. Jerry Tennant has himself immersed himself deeply into the concepts of Chinese traditional medicine, and using all of those concepts have kind of took off and created his whole healing is voltage,
Yes.
concepts and things like that, and philosophy. So Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. It all ties together, right?
Yeah,
Human
absolutely.
body is much more than just one thing at a time.
Mhm.
It's an entire living, breathing system. So now, for people who have let's say never been to a naturopathic doctor, they go in, they get basically interviewed. Do you encourage them? Hey, bring in whatever you've got, your lab tests, your X-ray, just it's just a tiny part of it. But do you tell them to bring it in if they have it? Because I'm sure you probably get cancer patients who are kind of at their wits' end, right? And they probably got all these numbers and
Yeah.
reports and things like that. But you said that it's a little bit of what you do. It's not necessary, but do you ask people to bring it in and just bring in whatever you got? Or do you like to start from scratch and you want to kind of just take it from, just start from scratch and take it from there?
No, I like them to bring in the labs that they've got, the imaging that they've got, because I look at it a little more functionally than their doctor would. And I can almost always pick out things that their doctor is not addressing, didn't notice, or isn't concerned about. And, I'll often have people bring in imaging, like their MRI results or X-ray results, and I can translate it for them from the doctorese, and explain to them what's going on in their body and what their doctor meant and what it actually means, with the imaging. And that's a huge thing because people, because the doctors don't explain, they don't take the time to talk about what's going on in your body, how could this have happened, and what might it be related to, and what do those terms and that whole scenario there that's on that paper, what does that actually mean? And so that's a big relief and a comfort to people that I can kind of explain to them what's going on. So I just kind of offer a different bird's eye view, than the medical profession might
Mhm.
do. I just take way more time. I take way
Yeah.
more energy. I actually listen to the people and I'll talk to them, on their level and say, this is what's going on. If I have to pull out my anatomy books and show them, I will. It makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, it's that that is literally 180 degree difference from all the experiences I've had. I usually,
Mhm.
when I used to go to Alapas, um, I think maybe 5 minutes. Maybe I think the longest I ever spent with anybody was maybe 10 minutes. And they basically, it was just I didn't get any very little information, and a prescription and here you go kind of thing. Come back later. So yeah, I think that's definitely makes so much sense to me. So let's just kind of from just an example for people who are maybe considering, reaching out to a naturopath doctor. First thing is how do they find one? Because that was one of the big questions I've been asked because people who kind of watch some of the electro healing videos that I make with all these credible, these crazy devices. But then like, okay, well, if I can't afford to buy my own, multi-wave oscillator, CNRs are not cheap.
Mm.
Where can I go and try it? Because that's what I always tell people, right? For I'm more of an advice guy, education guy. But when people are like, hey, I want to try using that device you just demonstrated. I want to try that on, I got a bad knee or something like so, but I can't afford, I don't want to buy the thing. I just want to try it. So I'm like, well, that's a good question because then, how do you find people who are using Rife machines, right, in their practices and things like that? Or how do you find someone who's got a Lakovsky or whatever, right, or violet rays and all these different really incredible electrical devices? So that's been a challenge, I think, for bioelectric magnetics, teaching people how to use that for health. But in your world, how do you find a naturopath, a doctor at your level? And I mean, where would they go? Is it something as simple as keep Googling until you get lucky? Or because,
Yeah.
yeah, Google is not necessarily friendly now to anyone who's not a
Yeah.
allopath in terms of finding
Yeah,
information.
I see that, and I'm going to have to address that eventually. You can actually find me by Googling it, because I'm at the top of my thing in my area, because I'm
Okay.
basically I'm one of the few ones in my area. But anywhere in the United States, you would probably start with the state professional naturopathic organization,
Oh, okay.
which, you know, there's always, almost always one in every single state. There's a national organization, AANP, National Association of Naturopathic Physicians, which can point you to your state. But not all naturopaths are registered with AANP. So
Yeah.
it's kind of tricky in some cases, but you definitely start, Googling with naturopathic physician, or state licensed, or so it is kind of tricky.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I've got like, so there's an American Association of Naturopathic Physicians, and they might have a, I guess they've got like a
Yeah.
find a doctor thing here.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They
Okay.
do.
So that's one way to doing it. Yeah. Because, okay. All right. That's good. And then, so that's how you would find someone in your area. And would you have any, because you've been doing it so long, and I'm sure as in any industry, right, there's good apples and bad apples. And, is there anything you want to kind of like would share with someone and say, hey, if you're looking for someone, this is what you would look for to find someone who's qualified or experienced or reputable? Is there any kind of advice you would give someone along those lines on how to pick the right one or how to find the right person?
Well,
Here's your find a doctor thing right here. So find a doctor. And I
yeah.
guess if they're on this list, does that kind of mean they're vetted?
So that means that they have gone through actual medical school with the clinic and are licensable, which means you've taken national boards. Um, so the tricky thing is that some of the traditional naturopaths will call themselves board certified, and that's a clue that they've never gone through medical school. So the certification should be from, the state and national level. There's, I forget what it's called, the College of National something something that licenses all the naturopathic schools. So you kind of need to be able to see what their training is and what their credentials are.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that somebody who hasn't been, to medical school isn't good in their particular area. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really kind of confusing.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what my first question always, whenever I'm dealing with anybody is like, what's your credentials? Like, what do you really?
Yeah.
Just but yeah, I looked up my zip code and there's only one person in my whole town. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, that's amazing. But at least there's the one. I should reach out to that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I, kind of joked about it once in our Telegram chat group where I wanted to start like a wellness center. Um, and I'm still thinking about it. I would just love to hook up with like-minded individuals and leverage each other's skills and talents, just to help people. That's just my
Mhm.
purpose at this point in life. But
Oh, that
okay,
would be amazing.
so that's kind of how you find someone. So that website again is the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians. There's a find a doctor section here, and then you would again, just take a look at their how long they've been doing it, and of course their credentials. And depending on what state, don't get caught up in whether they're licensed because some states don't, right? And
Correct.
so forth. Okay, all right, and that's how you
Yep.
find someone. So then, can we just talk about some like just some cases? Like I would love to hear some of your success stories because I think that's the thing. I think the biggest thing that I know from all the experiences I've had trying to help people, myself included, is that the first step is overcoming that fear, of having to take responsibility for my health when you come to that realization where you get so frustrated because you haven't shown any improvement for so long with your doctor. And then usually, what people normally do, switch doctors. So when I was in
Mhm.
Honolulu, I had, I think, maybe 5 different doctors through my HMO, where I just finally said, and so it's kind of like, it's really silly where you just keep kind of, it's like, it's, you go to a, you just keep going back for more, whatever you want to call it, but no results, no results, no results, whatever the problem might be. And then after a while, you're just like, okay, you want to just, instead of switching doctors, quote, in the medical field, why don't you switch different types of doctors, doctors that are skilled in other things. So, I just want to hear, like, what would be when that person finally makes that decision and says, man, this is not working out. This is not working out. My child is not getting better. And these terrified mothers, they that you talk with, right? They're just, when your kid is not getting better of whatever their problem is, it's terrifying. And that's the worst feeling you could ever have as a human being, is when your kid's sick and you can't get help. I'm sure you see that a lot. And so,
Yeah.
so they overcome that fear of, I'm going to try something outside of my, just absolute outside of my reference. So they would say, I'm going to try a different kind of doctor, a naturopathic doctor, or a Chinese traditional medicine doctor, or et cetera, right? Um, when they come to you and they've kind of crossed that fear boundary of, I'm going to take responsibility for my own health, I'm going to go and check out something else, make that decision. Of course, everybody around them is going, no, that's not a good idea. Their health insurance is going, no, we don't cover it. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, do you encounter that where people are just, I mean, or is that just I'm making that up in my own head, and it's not that complicated?
No, no, but what are you asking?
My
The
question, my question is, like, okay, first of all, like, what's that trigger that gets people to reach out to naturopathic doctors? Um, and it's kind of, like, what draws them to you? We kind of covered that earlier, right? About two-thirds
Mhm.
of them are just frustrated, and it just takes that bit of courage. I'm just mentioning it because it really was a huge deal in my life when I took that stand and said, look, no more, no more of this, and fired my doctor, and I went down the organic path. And then when they come to you, can we talk about, like, just some real life case studies of people that have come to you and they're just at their wits' end? And what happened? I mean, like, you have any stories that pop up in your head about certain
Yeah,
patients that were just at their wits' end? They came to you, and then all of a sudden, things just started getting better.
yeah. So, one of my recent patients who came in, a young man who has had diabetes for 30 years, had a heart attack, and he had open sores on his feet. And he had been to the doctors, and they tried to put him on all these meds, and he refused. And he basically dumped all the drugs and started going keto and fasting and looking at all the herbs. And he got himself pretty far. But when he came to me, he couldn't get the blood flow. It was compromised to his feet. And so we're now working on the blood flow to his feet. And I'm using my iTerra Care wand, which is, frequency. I'm using PEMF. We're using herbs and diet. And he also went to a podiatrist, and because through some things that we talked about, figured out that he's not walking correctly on the bones of his feet. And so he got a boot, and it's made a huge difference. So we've only seen a little bit of progress so far, but he seems to be well on his way to healing. So that's just one small part. So another young lady who came to see me was having huge migraines and really a lot of problems with her gut. And so we've been doing a lot of actually myofascial unwinding and some hands-on energy work. But, things, so I gave her, things like magnesium. We worked with hydration. We worked with diet a little bit. But then we reached a point where she was actually having more gut issues and things were happening. And she was actually not progressing. And right at the same time, I was studying oxalates and doing my little rabbit hole deep dive into that. And I just said to her, I said, like, let's start looking at oxalates, because he was eating a lot of tofu and seitan. I think that's how you pronounce it. Not
Oh yeah,
Satan.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That weird meat
that
substitute.
yeah, that
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
wheat thing. She was
yeah.
in a lot of textured vegetable protein, which is soy. And I
Ugh,
said, why don't? Yeah, I know, right? I'm a
that,
meat girl.
that's a
And
massive endocrine disruptor, right?
yeah. And so I
Yeah,
said, well, let's just try, getting off of those, get off as many of the really big oxalate things, no spinach, no almonds, and no fake meat. And it was like within a few weeks, her gut was perfect. And she felt,
awesome.
yeah, way more energy. The headaches reduced. Um, so she's just like almost, I'd say 80%, 85% better. She refuses to get off her birth control though. So I can't do anything with her because her hormones are related, her migraines are related to her hormones. And I basically told her straight up, I can't adjust that until you get off of those. And your migraines, we're only going to be able to do so much about that, because they're hormonally related and you're on a drug for that. But that's one of the best and fastest turnarounds I've seen diet wise. Now, the
Yeah,
other thing, so I'm a big mineral and fulvic acid and dirt person. Any kind of clay, dirt, mud, minerals, I'm all about it. So I had this one, actually my massage therapist husband, she wanted him to come in and see me. Of course, she had already um, mentioned a few things about me. And one of the things she said was that his last naturopath fired him. So I'm like, oh, great.
yeah. It's a good start.
Yeah.
I'm hard to work with. I want to let you know ahead of time.
Yeah.
At
Right. Right.
least they have
But
a warning. They should have,
yeah. 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 She had clued me in with some things about his family of origin and his birth that I stuck in the back of my head. And when he came in and we met, I went over that was a 2-hour appointment going over all the things and asking him every single question I could think of. And I started going down the rabbit hole of things that had happened. He was born with drugs in his system. And so I basically explained what happened to him neurologically when he was born and how that affected him and how that's affecting him now. And we pulled together all kinds of brain things, uh, birth order things, how you were born and that trauma, family of origin trauma, linked it to adrenaline, adrenals, diet issues going on right now, along with mood disorder. And it was like, boom, light bulb. And I put him on minerals and some brain mushrooms and, working on his diet some. And the first appointment when he came in, number one, it was a big win. He was actually taking the supplements. So I was thrilled. Number two, he said within days, he felt a shift. And I got to say, that's one of the best responses I've ever seen. And it was mainly to the minerals. He was so mineral deficient that just giving him minerals made a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
You're hitting on every single thing that I'm just passionate about.
yeah,
Yeah, the whole
yeah.
mineral thing. Well, that concludes part one of this remarkable discussion I had with Dr. Nadene Johnson. Thank you again for joining, Nadene, and also thank you everyone for staying and watching this video. It's just been it was a remarkable discussion, and so now I want to say thank you. Thanks for watching. If you wanted to reach out to me, or you can find me at the Tinkers.Academy. Just type that into your URL window, and that goes right to my blog. Also, really, if you like the content that I'm providing, then really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, again, I did cover in the video on how to reach Dr. Johnson. You can reach her at thrivenaturallywellness.com, and also, I'll put the links in the video description below if you wanted to reach out to her. And again, she's very much open to consultations. So if you had any questions specifically for her, just go to the video description to find contact information for her. And if you wanted to reach me, I got my contact info in there as well. So again, thank you so much for spending time watching this video. And I hope you can go on and watch part 2 that's coming along here shortly, where we're going to really get into the part 2 of the discussion, was where we really started talking about all of the really important things you should be doing for the core processes of your body that dictate your health. And we went into it in quite detail about, everything from mineralization to thyroid glandular health and so forth. So, I basically picked her mind on what it really takes to be at optimum health and wellness, for your own basic, survival. And so she was so gracious to share her time to, just, and give me her thoughts and her experience, given all the years and years that she's been doing this, and giving me her best tips and advice and what products that she uses and that she recommends to her patients. So really, that was it. This part 2, be sure to watch it. But thank you for watching part 1, and have a great day. Aloha.